Hello everyone, welcome to Into the Hive Mind. Today I wanted to make the video basically going over my Crusher Stampede and how it performed at the Las Vegas Open Championships. The Las Vegas Open is obviously the end of the year giant hurrah for the 2021 season and had just under 800 people in attendance. This is, I believe, the biggest LVO ever. I think the 2020 LVO had just under 700. So obviously a ton of people, a lot of big names were out here. And this year was really interesting. A lot of big names got knocked out before the top eight, making the top eight a real nice mix-up of just people we haven't heard of. And it was definitely a ton of fun. 9 rounds for people who make it to the top 8, 6 rounds for everyone else. And basically the missions just went in mission order. So day 1 is missions 1 1 1 2 1 3. Day 2 is 2 1 2 2 2 3, and then etc. for day 3 with all the 3 missions. And yeah, with over 800 people, was really hoping wouldn't get paired against any of my 8 other teammates, and I was successful in that, which is great. I don't think any of our teammates ended up playing each other, which was a real nice, refreshing change. Actually, it always feels bad to knock out a teammate or have a teammate knock you out, obviously. But yeah, so LVO, let's go over the list that I brought. Very similar to the last video I made with basically one large change. The list I brought is Crusher Stampede with a Leviathan Battalion. And essentially, you have the HQs are Swarmlord with Catalyst and Onslaught. Because he double moves, he pairs really well with Onslaught. Catalyst for 5-up Feel No Pain. Just give that extra durability to whatever you need for some already very durable Crusher Stampede monsters. Then my second HQ is a Flyrant with the Ignore, Invuln, Relic, boneswords, murderous size, toxin sacks, and he's equipped with the horror and paroxysm. Since he's going to be thrown forward to go and murder things, he's in my opponent's line, so casting the horror and paroxysm to debuff some of my opponent's core units is really key for him and works very well, making your opponent fight last, and then they just don't want to charge the Flyrant, so they have to shoot it, which puts on a ton of pressure. Next HQ is my Flyrant with the -1 to wound relic. Because of this, he's not super killy. He just standard double scything talons with wings, and he takes the very valuable psychic powers from the new Crusher Stampede to give a unit, give a model plus D3 extra attacks in melee, and give a unit a 4+ invulnerable save. Now, both of those powers are very key, and therefore, they're going on the -1 to wound Flyrant and wings just to make sure he can get wherever I need to put him. In the troop slot, I have 3 units of 3 warriors, all bare bones, just double scything talons, but handing out the +1s to hit. Obviously, super good to give +1 to hit to Tyranids. Most of your army is weapon skill, ballistic skill, 3-up or 4-up, and +1 to hit makes a big difference. And then in the elite slot, I've got a haruspex. This was kind of my unique tech in because Crusher Stampede is not very good against hordes. So the haruspex was my answer for that. He can end up getting tons of attacks since all of his attacks become D3 attacks. Every model he kills, he gets an extra attack. And if you cast the psychic power on him for D3 attacks, those D3 attacks become D3 attacks each. And you can get all the way up to 21 attacks. And every model you kill, you get an extra attack. It becomes a massive blender. 1 CP reroll hits, 1 CP reroll wounds. This guy becomes insane and is a lot of fun. He's also really cheap for toughness 8, 13 wounds, which in Crusher Stampede is just good all on its own. Also in the elites, we have 6 Hive Guard. This was the big major change that I had to my list from my last video. After thinking about it, talking it out, basically against Sisters and Grey Knights especially, I really need those Hive Guard and that ability to reach out and kill off all those infantry squads that are holding objectives. And Hive Guard are just really good at doing that. They are a CP sync, which I definitely felt throughout the event, but they also put in some work. Also in the elites are 2 lictors and a pyrovore. These guys are just action monkeys to get rod and engage, which Crusher Stampede really struggles on secondaries. So lictors and pyrovore to do rod and engage was great. With the moving forward with the GT2022 mission pack, they will no longer be able to perform it, as those objectives now require units of 3 or more, which is unfortunate, and Crusher Stampede is definitely going to struggle to get secondaries now. So that does tone it down quite a bit. Then in the heavy support, I have a single barbed hierodule. This guy is just ridiculously durable with a 2-up armor save and 18 wounds. Most of the time I throw the 4-up invuln on him as well, so he's just super tanky and just does consistent chip damage throughout the game with his guns. And then anything that gets close, he can just wail on them with his strength 10 AP 3 for 3 plus D3 damage, which is really good. And then finally, in the flyer slot, I had 2 harpies, both with Venom Cannons. Venom Cannons are just decent chip damage. Basically, I would give these guys +1 to hit turn 1 every game, throw them into my opponent's deployment zone, chip away at a big tank or some 3-wound infantry, and then just movement block and force my opponent to have to shoot and kill them. They also can steal objectives extremely well. If you want to just make them obsec, throw them forward onto your opponent's objective, it's very useful. And they score engage turn 1 every single game, which is great. So yeah, that's the list. Performs pretty well, and I'm very happy with it. Again, it definitely is going to have to change now with the 2022 pack to be able to get some more secondaries. I'll have to figure out what that is. I'll probably come up with a video in the future. But yeah, let's go over matchups. So, as a lot of you have probably heard, round 1, I got paired up into John Lennon right off the bat. And this was made extra fun by the fact that John Lennon had literally just had me on last week to do his their podcast and spend 2 hours talking about my list and what I was bringing to LVO and the strengths and weaknesses and how it does in all the matchups. So John spent 2 hours hearing every detail about my list. And then I go up against him, and he's playing the brand new Custodes, which I have not played against ever, and I know essentially nothing about. He's playing the Emperor's Chosen, which gives them a 4-up Feel No Pain against all mortals, which has always been Custodes' main weakness. So, and my list does dish out a lot of mortals, so that defense against it is huge. And then it gives a reroll hit or wound roll on every unit every time they attack, and that's just really solid with Custodes who have low amount of attacks but really high strength, AP, and damage. So yeah, John's list was not messing around. Obviously, he came to win the entire thing. He went into LVO as number 2 in the ITC. We were playing Retrieval Mission, and for secondaries, I took Rod, Engage, and To the Last. I've never actually taken To the Last before, but John's army literally gives up 0 secondaries, and the Retrieval Mission secondary is garbage. So yeah, I had nothing really to take other than To the Last. I thought about Mental Interrogation, but he only had 2 characters, and if I didn't kill those characters, I was going to lose. So I needed to kill them rather than hold on to them for Mental Interrogation. So yeah, it was To the Last, and my 3 To the Last targets in that list are the Barbed Hierodule, Swarmlord, and the Hive Guard. John ended up taking Stranglehold, Raise the Banners, and Bring It Down. So Retrieval Mission is 6 objectives, Hammer and Anvil deployment. 1 objective is in each of your deployment zone, with 4 in No Man's Land, but really 2 and 2 just outside of each player's deployment zone. I did get first turn, and the dice were just absolutely in my favor and let me get this huge alpha strike on John. Essentially, the very first volley of the game was my Hive Guard shooting into his Achilles Dreadnought. And his Dreadnought was in a forest, so he was -1 to be hit. My Hive Guard had +1 to hit, and I didn't bother with the exploding 6s. I figured with the -1 damage and the -1 to hit, I just wasn't going to be doing much. So I fire with my 12 shots, hitting on 3s, and I get 12 hits. Wounding on 3s, I get 10 wounds. And then John has a 4-up save. He rolls average, makes 5 out of 10 4-up saves. The 5 wounds that go through are D3 damage, -1 because he's a dreadnought. And I roll 5, 5, 5, 6, 6 for 15 damage, reduced to 10. And then he has a 6-up feel no pain that's on all 10 wounds, and he makes 1 save. Meaning he takes 9 damage, and his dreadnought has 9 health, so the dreadnought dies. And that was the very first volley of the game. I still haven't fired my barbed hierodule. I haven't fired my Hive Guard twice yet. I haven't fired my harpies. Yeah, it was... so that was amazing, obviously, for me. And then the barbed hierodule decides, okay, fine, if I'm going to shoot really well, I'm going to put all the buffs on the barbed hierodule, and I give him the exploding 6s, I give him the +1 damage, and I shoot into one of John's bike squads. And I end up killing the squad, just barely, and then he ends up CPing it to save 1 bike left on 2 wounds. So, also very good. Not quite as insane rolling-wise, but because I put all the buffs into it, but still very good for me. And then the other thing that happened was my murder Flyrant. I double moved him forward with Swarmlord and charged him into John's other Achilles Dreadnought. And I fought with all my buffs, my 2d3 extra attacks, and brought it down to a single wound left, which was unfortunate, but that it got to swing, because I actually think on average I can pick that up in 1 swing. But he did live with 1 wound left, and on the swing back he did kill me. I thought about fighting in death, but instead, since he only had 1 wound left, I decided to risk it, and I just spent 1 CP to auto-explode. And with that, I did 2 mortals, and John failed 1 of them, so the Achilles was dead as well. So I finished turn 1 with 2.5 bikes dead, both of John's Achilles dead, and both of my harpies in his deployment zone, putting John very much on the back foot. On his turn, he essentially moved his entire army to one half of the board to just get as far away from my barbed hierodule as possible and not give him any targets. And then he fired all of his guns at my haruspex, who was sitting on an objective, in order to deny me some primary, which he achieved. He blew the haruspex off the objective, and then he charged and killed my harpy off of the other no man's objective on that side of the board. But I did still have my harpy on the no man's objective on the other side, so I was able to score 10 primary for my turn 2. John had moved his sisters forward to steal the objective from that harpy on the objective on the other side, and the rest of his army all went to the corner. So I was only able to get 10 primary because the harpy was out of range to give him obsec. That is you can only give it to a unit that is within 12 of a synapse creature, which I'm sure 40 of the 60 Crusher Stampedes that were at LVO did not play that correctly, but live and learn, I guess. So yeah, I got 10 primary, and then on my turn, I was able to just kind of go ham with the Hive Guard, and I double moved my other Flyrant to go and kill John's Wardens off of his objective, and obviously killed off the Sisters and his Void Guardsmen, both squads of which were kind of sitting around to raise some banners. John basically put 1 banner up with his Wardens, and I sent my Flyrant over to kill them and take the banner right back down immediately, just to deny every point possible that I could. And that basically left John with 1 objective left on his turn 2 that he was holding with only Trajan. So I'm already denying John tons of points. He's stuck in the corner. He doesn't have really much left other than characters and his Gladius tank. And basically turn 2, his clutch play was he moved his bike captain, fell back from combat with my harpy, and used the strat to change shield hosts to be the one that allows you to fall back and charge. And then promptly failed the 6-inch charge into my Hive Guard, even with the command point reroll. And he was very much banking on that. So now my Hive Guard are untouched. His bike captain is right out in the open, right out in front of my entire army. And all he's done is basically he picks up my other harpy. And yeah, and basically gets in combat with most of his army against my -1 to wound tyrant. Because of the -1 to wound, it's not dead yet. And that's also very frustrating for him because it is on my turn. I then promptly make it obsec to get my 15 primary and then kill the couple Sagittarum that were obsec on the objective so then when it's John's turn again, I once again hold him down to only a single primary because he's in combat with me on the objective, but I'm obsec and count as 6 models, and he has 3 bikes in combat with me, but they're not obsec. So yeah, I hold him down to only a single primary again. And at this point, it kind of goes downhill from here. Basically, John does eventually manage to clean up the Flyrant and most of my monsters. But he now can't touch the Hive Guard for the rest of the game, meaning I can just continue to shoot him off of objectives, and I'm just dominating on primary. I do manage to basically finish the game out with, I got 10 primary round 2 and 15 primary 3, 4, and 5. John got 5 primary round 2 and 3, and then he did finally manage to start pushing me back and get 10 primary round 4 and 5. As far as secondaries, for Rod, I was able to Rod in every corner. Basically, my home corner turn 1, then John's corner turn 2 with a lictor, the other corner with a lictor turn 3, and pyrovore turn 4. For engage, I had, between my harpies and flyrants, I had someone in engage every single turn, so I maxed out engage. And then for to the last, I did end up losing Swarmlord. I double moved him in to fight basically turn 5. And I think bottom of 5, John managed to kill Swarmlord to deny me 5 to the last. So I got 10 points on that. And then for John's secondaries, because I got first turn and then he decided to basically push everything to one side, he only got Stranglehold turn 1. So he got 3 points on Stranglehold. And then he took Raise the Banners, but because I was so aggressive about denying him primaries, he didn't get a single banner point until turn 4. And then finally, he got 3 banner points on turn 5 for a total of 4 for Raise the Banners. And then on Bring It Down, he managed to kill every single monster except for the barbed hierodule, leaving him with 12 out of 15 for Bring It Down. So that means the final score is 92 to 59. Again, just some really clutch alpha strike for me right off the bat, preventing John from really being able to keep up with killing all the stuff that he absolutely needed to. And then that combining with me being able to turn on OBSEC and just deny him all his objectives meant that I took John Lennon out of LVO right off the bat turn 1. John, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. And to everyone that John then fought in the sequential rounds, I'm sorry. That was my bad. Yeah, because John then proceeded to not drop a single point for the next 4 rounds after playing me. And then beat another Crusher Stampede for some vengeance in round 6 with a 76-point win. Round 2. I'm now playing against Scott Lafontaine, I think is how you would pronounce it. Scott is a very solid Demons player. He made it to the top 8 in SoCal. So with with his demons, and he was expecting to go 6-0 after having such a great SoCal performance. And in this mission, we were playing, let's see. So this is mission 12, which was Scorched Earth. So Dawn of War deployment. You have 6 objectives, 2 in each deployment zone, 2 in no man's land. And in this game, Scott is playing a Pierce Lanesh detachment with 3 keepers, including the Forbidden Gem, some demonettes, some fiends, and then a second demon detachment with Be'lakor, the unkillable Lord of Change, and a bunch of Nurglings and Beasts of Nurgle. So for secondaries, I took Engage, Rod, and then Assassinate, since he had 5 large monsters that are all characters. If I kill all 5 of them, I get max Assassinate. And Scott took Stranglehold, Warp Ritual, and Grind them down. He was thinking rather than try and kill all my big monsters, Grind them down was the better choice. Basically go after my warriors and my lictors and pyrovore, rather than try and kill all 7 of my large monsters. In this game, I once again got first turn, and Scott basically deployed as a bait that he had done to a previous Crusher Stampede, and this allowed him to win the game. But he put all of his monsters basically in a big grouping together, just in one little huddle, that he knew if I got first turn, I'd be immediately trying to send my Ignore, Invuln, Flyrant after Be'lakor, and that's absolutely what I did. I got first turn, put some pot shots in, I think I killed a Beast of Nurgle with the hierodule because he had no other targets to shoot, and then my Hive Guard picked up a Keeper of Secrets, with shooting twice and exploding 6s, but they did pick up a Keeper. And then I double moved the Ignore, Invuln, Flyrant with all the extra attacks, charged him into Be'lakor, and this is when Scott tried to trigger his trap of the Forbidden Gem. And basically this is what he had done to the previous guy. He huddled up, he charged in his Murder Flyrant, and then Forbidden Gem, no, you don't get to fight this phase, and Be'lakor just chops him to pieces. And then suddenly you move out with all your monsters and just start crushing. Well, this time I go in, Scott uses the Forbidden Gem, and I'm leadership 10, -1 because I'm in range of Be'lakor, so leadership 9. Scott has 3d6 to roll higher than a 9, and he rolls a 4. He rolls a 1-1-2 to promptly fail the Forbidden Gem, which means that my Murder Flyrant gets to just swing at Be'lakor, and I just spent the 1 CP to reroll wounds. So I have 5 plus 2d3 attacks, hitting on 2s, wounding on 4s, rerolling, ignoring all saves for flat 4 or 5 damage. I did something like 27 damage to Be'lakor and just picked him up instantly. So now it's Scott's turn. He's on a major back foot. He's already burned his Forbidden Gem for nothing. Be'lakor's dead. Keeper's dead. And he still has my Flyrant, who's not even hurt, sitting in his deployment zone alongside 2 harpies. And he tries to punch back and essentially does very little. He has to throw everything into that Flyrant because it's just going to kill everything if he doesn't. So he goes after a bunch of smites, but with the -1 to cast and me having 4 denies, I think he does 1 wound between all the smites. I even denied the psychic ritual that he attempted. And so then he charges in and manages to kill. Well, I think he manages to bring a harpy down to like 3 wounds, but with 1 keeper. And then the other keeper and the Lord of Change charged after my Flyrant. The keeper then, I think, does 4 damage to my Flyrant through invulns, because, I mean, his claws, I have a 4-up invuln and reduce the damage down to 2, and then I had a 5-up feel no pain, and his claws are wounding me on 5s. So he didn't do much. He only got 4 damage through, brought me down to 7, so I'm not even degraded. I then promptly interrupt and put all my attacks into the Lord of Change, who has a 3-up invulnerable save, but I was ignoring invulns. So I did 29 damage to him. He has his 6-up Feel No Pain that every one he makes, he gets a wound back. But I did 29 wounds, and so he just, even with making 4 of them, getting those wounds back, he still died. And at this point, Scott just was like, "Hey man, can you give me some dignity and we'll just call it here." So we called it after round 1, and I don't blame him for that. It was pretty early on. So I ended up with a 97-point win with that one, getting max points that I could get. 45 primary, 15 assassinate, 15 engage, and 12 retrieve Octarius. So then that brings us on to round 3, where I played against Nate Bjorn, I believe is how you would pronounce his last name. Sorry, I don't know the Slavic languages that well, but Nate is actually from Texas, but his last name looked very Slavic. Nate is playing Custodes again. Very similar list to Lenin's, with multiple dreadnoughts, multiple bikes, multiple characters. And he has 2 Galadis tanks. The main difference is he is running a split shield host, where half his army is Emperor's Chosen, the same as John. But the other half gets fight first and a stratagem for a pregame move. And this is huge because in this game, we are playing, the mission is Vital Intelligence. So that is the diagonal deployment, hold 2, hold 3, with only 1 objective in each player's deployment zone, and then the 4 across the middle. This mission sucks. It's real easy to deny primaries because you only have 1 in your deployment zone, and it's a hold 2, hold 3. So trying to hold an objective in the center of the table where your opponent can just shoot you off of it is really difficult. With this, because it worked against John, I tried it again for similar reasons. I did engage, retrieve Octarius, and to the last, hoping that it'd end up similar with the to the last, where I could get Swarmlord, Hive Guard, and barbed hierodule, at least 2 of the 3 alive at the end of the game. My opponent, similar to my previous opponent, decided to go for grind them down rather than bring it down. He also went for the data intercept, the mission secondary. So he was really focusing on doubling down on that primary. And then he went for the Custodes special one, the Auric Mortalis, where he needs to kill my most expensive unit. And if he does it in so basically if he kills my most expensive unit, he gets 5 points. If he does it in combat, he gets 10 points. If he does it outside of 6 of his deployment zone, he gets 15 points. And then you subtract 2 from that score for every unit that my model has killed that game. Well, with this, Nate wins the roll for first turn. He then pregame moves his Achilles Dreadnought and then moves it forward and manages to make his 9-inch charge into my barbed hierodule and picks it up turn 1. Just by chopping it down with the Achilles Dreadnought. And because of that, just automatic 15 on that secondary, which, I don't know. I guess I should have deployed a little more defensively, but with diagonal deployment and diagonal deployment and the pregame move and him just making the 9-inch charge, not much I could do about that. I also thought that he got the 15 if it was within 6 of his deployment zone, not outside of 6. So I figured, okay, fine, I'll have you kill it turn 1 and get 10 points. I didn't realize that that was just going to give him 15. So yeah, he got that, and that was obviously a big blow. Other shooting turn 1, I think he picked up he killed the barbed hierodule and then piled into a harpy. And then on my turn, I go forward and the harpy shoots at some stuff and the Hive Guard shoot at the Achilles that's now basically in my deployment zone. And the Hive Guard do the complete opposite of what they did to Lenin, where they now fire with all the buffs and shooting twice and do 1 damage to the Dreadnought. So, yeah, my opponent just made all of his saves, and the one that went through, I rolled a 1 on for the damage. Yeah, that was really rough. I threw my Murder Flyrant to go after his bike commander to try and kill him before he could tie up my Hive Guard. And my Murder Flyrant, who in the previous game had just done 27 and 29 wounds to Be'lakor and a Lord of Change, now goes into my opponent's bike captain and does 3 damage. With 5 plus 2d3 attacks, rerolling wounds. My opponent did turn off my rerolls. And then, yeah, just made, I think, 5 of 7 5-up invulns, and then made some feel no pains. And yeah, I only did 3 damage. So essentially on my turn 1, I did absolutely nothing to him. And on his turn, his bike captain falls back, charges my Hive Guard. His Dreadnought stays in combat, kills the haruspex. Or no, I fell back, and he charges the Dreadnought into my -1 to wound Flyrant and manages to pick that up, which really hurt. So yeah, and then on my turn 2, I finally pick up the Dreadnought that's now in my back lines, and Swarmlord kills his bike captain, and my Murder Flyrant managed to actually make most of his saves, so he's down to like 5 wounds left, goes and charges into his Dreadnoughts, and I kill one of them, and I've put paroxysm on the other one. So I'm like, okay, next turn, he either has to fall back with his Dreadnought and do nothing, or he's fighting last, and I get to fight first and just chop this Dreadnought up. And then at the end of my turn, he heroically intervenes Trajan 6 inches, which I forgot. I knew Trajan Heroic 6, but I had forgotten Trojan Heroic 6. And he was like 5.95 inches away. It was really unfortunate that Trajan was within 6. He heroics and gets to my Murder Flyrant, gets to swing first, picks him up before he gets to kill the other Dreadnought, and then consolidates 3. And now it's his turn 3. Trajan moves the 6, makes the 10-inch charge into the Swarmlord, fights twice, piles into my Hive Guard, ties him up again. And there's just nothing I can do at this point. My Hive Guard has spent, or my haruspex has spent 2 turns fighting 3, 3 of the bolter troops. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on their names right now. But my haruspex charged into 3 of them, does 0 damage, fights again, 0 damage, fights again, 0 damage. So he spent, for his first 3 turns, he does 0 damage to just 3 guys sitting on an objective. So I get 0 primary because this haruspex just keeps whiffing. He falls back and decides to go try his luck with a Dreadnought, does 1 damage, and then the Dreadnought kills him on the swing back. It was just as good as my dice were against Lenin. They were the complete opposite this game, where I just did absolutely nothing to my opponent all game long, and he's just obliterating me, which was really unfortunate. But congrats to him. He managed to take a real big win this game, where he gets 40 of the primaries. I did manage to steal all of his primaries turn 2 with making some obsec harpies, but yeah, that was it. And then he got 15, 10, and 15 on primaries for the next 3 turns. My primary, I got 5 turn 2, 3, and 4, and that was it, because again, this mission is really difficult if your opponent can just knock you off of objectives. For engage, I only got 7 points, 2, 2, and 3 in turns 1, 2, and 3, which is definitely really bad, but my harpies just died super early. My Flyrants died super early, so I couldn't get that backboard presence. For rod, I managed to get 8 of the points. I didn't get that final rod because I was tabled by turn 4, essentially. And to the last, obviously, I got 0 because he just tabled me super early. For him, he got 15 on grind him down. So no, I was not quite tabled. He basically left me with a few warriors left in order to feed on the grind him down and get his max 15. Obviously, he got his 15 on the Auric Mortalis, as I was talking about. And for data intercept, he only got 1 point for data intercept turn 1, and then 4 points turn 3, and 6 points turn 4, for a total of 11 on data intercept. And so, yeah, that left the final score, Nate 91, me 40. And that left me at the end of day 1, 2-1, but I did bring down John Lennon and Scott Fontaine, who both had been planning on going 6-0. So I guess I was just going to go headhunting for the rest of the event now. Because I only have 2 events in Tyranids and most of my events were Forces of the Hive Mind, there wasn't even an option for me to go for Best in Faction. So basically, after losing a game, the only thing I have left to do is just have a good time and maybe knock out a couple more top players. But of course, now that I'm 2-1, I'm probably, the hopes for that are kind of down as well, because anyone that I'm fighting has already lost a game. So then that brings us to day 2. So now we're playing mission 2-1, 2-2, and 2-3. My first game of the day, so round 4, is paired up against Steven Hartman. Steven is playing Orcs. He's actually playing the Speedwog, which I have not ever gone up against before. But basically he has 2 units of buggies, the ignore line of sight ones, and then the super missile ones, as well as 3 units of 5 bike boys, 2 planes, the Bama and the Dakajet, and then a Beast Boss on Squigosaur and a War Boss on Wartrike. Can't think of anything else that he had in his list, but mission, we are playing Surround and Destroy, so that is Dawn of War with 6 objectives, 2 in each deployment zone, 2 in the middle. And he basically was under the impression that if he went first, we'd be able to have a game. If I went first, then I just auto win. And I did manage to get first turn, but we very much just had a game the whole time, which was good because for the first day, all 3 of my games were basically blowouts. I mean, one way or another, either I won big or lost big. In this game, I took the secondaries of Engage, Rod, and Bring It Down because he did give up like 18 points on Bring It Down. And then my opponent took Engage, Abhor the Witch, and Assassinate. So again, people just really didn't want to take Bring It Down against me. I guess they thought that was going to be too much of a task. And so instead, Steve basically decided to go after just the tyrants. So with Assassinate and Abhor the Witch, every tyrant that he kills gives him 6 points. But that does cap out 2 secondaries on only 19 points rather than 30. So with that, basically, I did get first turn, and he deployed very defensively, where my Hive Guard were basically out of range of everything. The other thing about this table, we played on the one where every single piece of terrain was obscuring and dense. There was one set of terrain that LVO had that was like this, and we happened to be playing on that one. So basically, everything in the army is -1 to hit, and then because of my warriors, I'm giving everything +1 to hit, which actually really mattered in this game because of him with his Speedwog. All his biker boys are -1 to hit, his planes are -1 to hit, and then he has the stratagem for the smog cloud that makes everything within 6 -1 to hit. So that combined with the dense terrain made it where my +1 to hit was completely negated because everything was -2 to hit. So yeah, my Hive Guard are hitting on 4s, my barbed hierodules hitting on 4s. It really made it a game. Otherwise, I do think I probably could have had a huge alpha strike, but instead I had to move my Hive Guard forward turn 1 to be able to shoot some of his ignore line of sight buggies. And between shooting at him with the Hive Guard, shooting at him with the barbed hierodule, I was able to kill 2 of the 3, which left open just a tiny little pocket for me to get my murder Flyrant in, who promptly charged his war boss on Killatrike and pick him up. So that was my turn 1 strike, and then my harpies were basically able to tie up a biker squad each, and then I cast paroxysm and the horror on his 3rd biker squad. Making it where his hit back was going to be very minimal was really important to me, and I very much did so. As far as points, I did score the 3 for engage, and I deployed my first rod. Steven, on his first turn, he was able to pick up my murder Flyrant, but it did take the vast majority of his shooting. The other thing that he did was both of his planes flew into my backfield and picked up all of my Hive Guard, which was very big and very important. So the Hive Guard were dead turn 1. However, because I was able to put the pressure on from the start, as far as primary, on my turn 2, I did score the 15 primary. And then I did still have both of my harpies alive, so they were able to still score me 3 engage points. Lictor was able to come down and score me some rod. And basically, I then focused on tying up all of his missile buggies, because those guys can just really mess you up with 9d3 plus 3 strength 8 AP2 for 3 damage missiles. He is freebootas, so he's getting the +1 to hit as long as he kills something, and that can just be disgusting. So basically, his turn 2, he then picks up the -1 to wound Flyrant and starts chipping away at my barbed hierodule, but he's not able to kill it. He does get 10 primary though, as well as 3 engage because of his planes. So with that, I've had 15 primary to his 10. We've both scored max points on engage, and he has now brought down both my murder Flyrant and the -1 to wound Flyrant. So he's sitting there at 13 points already for Abhor the Witch and Assassinate. But on my turn 3, I do manage to get a full 15 primary again, just because I was able to make my Swarmlord obsec on an objective to deny it from the biker boys. So then I could get 15 points on primary. Then I was able to bring down my second lictor, get the 3rd rod in his table quarter, as well as get all the engage points. At this point, my barbed hierodule shot and brought down his Bama, which was very big and very annoying. The Bama has so many. It's 2d6 las cannon shots essentially, plus d3 melta shots, and with freebootas, those can be hitting on 3s. So that's obviously really strong. I needed to bring it down. Thankfully, the barbed hierodule did that. I was able to keep him down to only 10 primary again, but this turn he does pick up Swarmlord, basically focusing everything on it, as well as getting 2 points for engage. He still had some biker boys in my table quarter, and his Def Coptas had come in. That was the other thing he had. He had 2 big units of 5 Def Coptas, and I can't believe I forgot those because those were huge. Deep striking into my backfield or outflanking into my backfield, picking up all the warriors on my home objective and charging the other squad of warriors and killing them all in combat is what made it very much a game. So at this point, I'm basically left with 1 unit of warriors, a pyrovore, and my haruspex, and I think a barbed hierodule down to 4 wounds left. I do manage to get 10 primary though, so at this point, I'm not that concerned. As long as I hold on to 1 objective to get 5 primary for turn 5, then I have maxed my primary. The pyrovore does the final rod, giving me max rod points, and I double move the remaining lictor squad using metabolic overdrive in order to get the final table quarter, so I do still get 3 on engage. And I kill most of his most everything in his army other than the Def Coptas. And at this point, he's able to basically get some Def Coptas in 2 table quarters, and I think he had 1 remaining biker boy that he then just advanced back onto a home field objective to get 2 engage points. But I'm basically almost tabled just from those Def Coptas. They pick up the haruspex, they pick up the barbed hierodule and leave the haruspex as my last remaining model, other than the pyrovore. However, the pyrovore and the haruspex are both on an objective, so I get 10 primary for turn 5, maxing out my primary. And I don't even do anything. I don't attack him. I just kind of sit on the objectives, say, all right, it's your turn. I've won the game. So because he does have bottom of the turn, he does pick up the pyrovore, he does pick up the haruspex, and basically tables me. However, he's also got very little left. He does get the 15 primary since he scores at the end of his turn, and the final 2 for engage, making it where both of us maxed out our primary score at 45, and then for secondaries, I had gotten 13 for engage, he had gotten 11, and then I got 12 for rod and 15 for bring it down, whereas he got 9 for abhor the witch and 10 for assassinate, which was the max scores for him, but not enough because I basically max pointed, only dropping 2 engage points, and he basically max pointed, only dropping 4 engage points, but then his abhor and assassinate maxed out a lot lower than my bring it down and rod. I did end up winning the game with the final score being 95-85. So that one was very much a game. It basically just came down to the secondaries, me being able to deny him on those and him picking abhor and assassinate rather than bring it down. And yeah, so I managed to win round 4 against orcs with the Speedwog, and that brought us on to round 5. Round 5, I get to play none other than Ryan Snyder. So this is now my 3rd Custodes match of the event, and I've now played John Lennon. I have played a Nate from Texas, who I don't think is well known, but I could be wrong. I have personally never heard of him, but he's the one who beat me. And then Ryan Snyder is now playing a slightly different Custodes list where he is all bikes and tanks, other than Trajan. And basically, he is still playing Emperor's Chosen, so he does still have the 4-up Feel No Pain against mortals and the free reroll. But he's running 3 Gladius tanks, 3 of the smaller version of the Gladius tanks. I don't know their names, but 3 of those, and then 2 units of 4 bikes, as well as Trajan and a bike captain. I think that was it. I mean, it is Custodes. They're very expensive, so they don't have a ton of models. But as far as objectives, I went for the same thing that I took against the other Custodes, engage and rod, and then because there's nothing really scoring-wise worth taking for killing them, I took to the last, relying on my barbed hierodule, swarmlord, and Hive Guard to survive throughout the game. And Ryan took behind enemy lines, bring it down, and to the last. His to the last was 2 bike squads and 1 of his Gladius tanks that he had painted a different color. And then with this, we were playing mission 22, which is battle lines. That is hammer and anvil deployment with 4 objectives, 1 in each deployment zone, 2 in the middle. And both of us deployed hyper defensively, completely out of line of sight with basically our entire armies. Knowing whoever went first did have the speed to get angles, but we were trying to minimize that as much as possible. And then Ryan did manage to win the first turn roll-off, which I was fine with because we had both deployed so defensively. However, he did have some redeploys. And he probably took, I want to say, about 30 minutes trying to decide what to redeploy because we both played so defensively. He wasn't sure if he wanted to suddenly change tact and try and go aggressive or not. But in the end, he did elect to redeploy both bike squads basically on the line. He had chosen the kata that gave him plus 4-inch range, so his bikes now had 28-inch range. And he lined them up directly across my barbed hierodule and opened fire, brought it down immediately. Right off the bat, turn 1, killed the barbed hierodule because it couldn't hide, which was honestly kind of expected. Those bikes all had missile launchers as well as all of his tanks and the captains having missile launchers. So he brought that down easily. Unfortunately, with him having to do that, it did put him in range of my Hive Guard. So on my turn 1, I double shoot the Hive Guard and both harpies all into one bike squad and managed to pick up all 4 of them. And then I double moved my murder Flyrant, fought twice, and managed to pick up the other bike squad. And with that was absolutely huge because Ryan had taken behind enemy lines as well as to the last. And as far as I was concerned, he now couldn't really score much on either of those. I mean, his behind enemy lines, the only things he had that were fast were his tanks. And if he wanted to move his tanks all the way into my deployment zone, I would just kill them. So yeah, I and then his to the last was 2 biker squads that were already dead, as well as 1 tank that I still had 4 turns to kill. So on my turn, I double moved my harpy, or no, I just moved the harpy who had already gotten the engaged turn. No, never mind. Sorry, my turn 1. I did double move the harpy. I made it obsec, and I stole Ryan's primary objective. The other real big weakness of Ryan's list being all bikes and tanks. There's no obsec in his army, so making my harpy obsec and throwing it onto his deployment zone objective meant he got 0 primary for his turn 2. And with that, he basically then decided to castle and move his entire army up into the corner, just to hide and shoot me and then score later in the game. Unfortunately, I rolled decent on my invulns and my stuff just wasn't dying, and because of that, he never really got to move out, and the game spiraled out of control very quickly from that point, where I scored 15 primary turn 2, 3, 4, and 5 because my stuff just wasn't dying and he wasn't even trying to be on objectives anymore. He was just trying to survive. And yeah, because of that, I was able to score 15 for engage, just 3 points every single turn because I was putting on the pressure. My -1 to wound Flyrant basically just made himself obsec on Ryan's home objective from turn 3 on and just never died. Yeah, and my lictors had free reign to do Rod, and basically at the end of the game, Ryan had only killed 2 monsters. He killed a single harpy and the barbed hierodule. And that was not good for him because he took Bring It Down. So he got 4 points on Bring It Down. He scored 0 primary. He scored 0 behind enemy lines. And he scored 0 to the last for a total of 14 points with his 10 battle ready. And then I maxed out my primary, obviously. I maxed out engage, I maxed out rod, and I got 10 to the last because he killed the barbed hierodule turn 1. So yeah, final score was 92 to 14. Very obviously big win for Tyranids against the Custodes. Yeah, so that was just a very high scoring game for me, bringing us into game 6. Game 6, I am playing against Ben, and he is another orc player. So for LVO, my 6 games were against 3 Custodes, 2 orcs, and a demon player. Benjamin Jurek, I did not recognize his name, but plenty of people came over to check on how he was doing. He is a very good player that I guess battles it out with Rich Kilton quite frequently for top orcs. And it showed. He had a very solid list. It was very similar to my round 4 opponent's list, having 2 units of 3 buggies, both with the ignore line of sight and the missile buggies. However, he was not a speedwog. He had 2 orc kill rigs. He had full of beast snagaboys, and he had 3 mech guns, as well as a beast boss on Squigosaur, a war boss on Wartrike, and tons of just like OBSEC commandos, because he did bring that extra detachment of OBSEC infantry for a bunch of commandos and not Sky Boys, but the boys with jump packs. And yeah, we are playing mission 23, which is the Scouring. So it was very interesting that LVO finished up on Scouring. I know that happened to just be because of the way the missions were numbered, But Scouring is definitely a very interesting mission to finish a major on, and it is very low scoring. So with that, I tried to take the 3 missions that had worked for me against Rich as secondaries, because with the way Scouring is, the tiny deployment zones, the very long no man's land that has all 5 objectives right in the middle of the battlefield, I knew with him having just tons of OBSEC orcs that I was not going to win a battle of basically holding the center. And because of that, I took Bring It Down and Grind It Down rather than trying to go for Engage and Rod. And then I did take Stranglehold because you need to hold at least 3 objectives at the end of your turn to hopefully hold 2 objectives by the time it's your turn again. Because Scouring is the hold 2, hold 3, and it's just so easy to get shot off of 2 objectives. So with this, I took Bring It Down, Grind Them Down, and Stranglehold, and Ben took Engage, Rod, and Bring It Down. And in this game, I definitely wanted first turn because both of us had tons of ignore line of sight shooting, and basically whoever got to fire theirs first would pick up the other person's ignore line of sight shooting. And unfortunately, Ben did get to go first. So promptly 2 planes, he had 2 Daka jets, as well as his 3 ignore line of sight buggies, all shot and picked up all my Hive Guard. He declared the WOG right off the bat, turn 1, and picked up all the Hive Guard, and he stayed very defensive and didn't shoot anything else. Just went after the Hive Guard. So then on my turn, I move forward with the Harpy and with both Harpies and double move my Murder Flyrant. The Murder Flyrant promptly fights twice and picks up his Beast Boss on Squigosaur, which is just a very hardy target that I knew if I didn't kill now, I was never going to kill. So I tried killing him right off the bat, and then I tied up his ignore line of sight buggies with a Harpy in combat, and then I tied up a kill rig and managed to movement block his second kill rig, forcing it where he had to charge into my Murder Flyrant or just not do anything for the turn. He elected to charge into the Murder Flyrant, and his turn 2 basically was bring everything in, and his missile buggies had outflanked, which was definitely smarter than my round 4 opponent. Had kept them on the table. With the outflank, I wasn't able to do anything to stop him, and so his planes basically just picked up a small warrior unit, which then gave all of his buggies +1 to hit because he's freebootas, because all orcs are freebootas. So he picked up a warrior unit, and then all of his buggies was able to come on the flank and just shoot the haruspex and pick it up right off the bat with all their 21 missiles, I think is what he rolled. Yeah, it was 21 missiles plus the 3, so 24 missiles, picked up the haruspex, and his kill rig charged into my Murder Flyrant, as well as all of the 10 Beast Boys got out of each kill rig and also charged my Flyrant and Harpy, and managed to basically, on that turn, he put my Flyrant down to 2 wounds and killed both Harpies, as well as picking up the haruspex with with all of the buggies that had outflanked, which was really big, and he was able to basically put on a ton of pressure, and my Flyrant fighting back into his kill rig did 11 wounds, which is a big chunk, but not nearly as much as I was hoping he would do. And because of that, I'm now in combat with 10 Beast Snagga Boys and 2 kill rigs with my Murder Flyrant. And for the first time, he falls back. I couldn't do anything. As far as if I stayed, I was definitely going to die. I only had 2 wounds left. So I tried to fall back and behind line of sight and hopefully live another day. And it didn't work because I didn't have anything left at that point to really put on pressure. Because I fell back with the Murder Flyrant, I basically could only go forward with the -1 to wound Flyrant, who was able to tie something up, but he doesn't do tons of damage. And the only other thing was the barbed hierodule, who shot and killed he kind of whiffed, and he basically killed the remaining buggy that I'd put down to, or the remaining kill rig that I had put down to 7 wounds. And that was my turn. I only killed the kill rig, and the murder flyer, and I think tied up his mech guns. Or the -1 to wound flyer. Tied up the mech guns. Unfortunately, that was all I was able to do. And then on his turn, he flies off with his planes, and his Beast Snagga boys go and finish off the murder tyrant that only has 2 wounds left. And the rest of his army shoots at my -1 to wound tyrant, and I believe picks it up. And so now it's my turn, and I'm left with Swarmlord and a barbed hierodule and some warriors, and I think that's it on turn 3. Swarmlord then goes and starts duking it out with his final kill rig. I don't kill it. It doesn't kill me. And the barbed hierodule goes after his war boss on War Trike. He does kill it, but I made a mistake and I didn't make my barbed hierodule obsec, and he was sitting on the center objective. If I had done that, I could have gotten stranglehold and denied primary for my opponent, but because I didn't, my opponent then got 15 points on primary, and in the scouring, that's huge because I was basically just relying on having 15 primary for having bottom of turn on round 5. Unfortunately, I didn't even make it to bottom of turn because then his turn 4, his missile buggies pick up the barbed hierodule, and Swarmlord just continues fighting in the center, and the rest of his army picks up my pyrovore and the rest of my warriors. He does actually forget to fly his planes on, and I don't know, he didn't even ask if it was okay for him to fly it on, like in a corner somewhere. He was just like, guess my plane's dead. He was up ahead so much it didn't matter, but his plane just died because he forgot to bring it back in. But yeah, it didn't matter. My turn was just Swarmlord. My choices were either stay on an objective and fight a kill rig or fall back. So I just made him obsec and continue to fight on an objective, but because I had nothing else left, I couldn't hold any primary at all because it's a hold 2, hold 3. And I'm eventually tabled turn 5 with Swarmlord finally dying to the rest of his army. So with that, primary-wise, my opponent scored 35 primary. He got 15 on turn 4 and 5, and 5 on turn 3. He got 14 for engage, only getting 2 points on turn 2 and 3 every single other turn. He did get max on rod, as well as 12 for bring it down. I guess that's right. Swarmlord actually didn't die. He lived all the way to the end of the game. So he killed everything except Swarmlord. But yeah, for me, I only got 10 primary. I got 5 points on turn 3 and 4. And then I got 13 for bring it down, 3 for grind him down, and 6 for stranglehold. I only got grind him down turn 1, and I got stranglehold turn 1 and 3. Yeah, there just wasn't much I could do. So was kind of a blowout game again, this time in the Orcs' favor. So Ben ended up winning 83-42. And that put me at finishing LVO once again 4-2. I have been to 10 LVOs, and all 10 of them I have gone 4-2, regardless of what army I bring, whether it's the meta Space Marines or Tyranids, whether the Tyranids are good or bad. 4-2 just seems to be where I'm at. However, this time I did bring down John Lennon, so that was kind of my big moment of fame for the event. And yeah, the list is definitely going to change now with the LVO20 or the GT Mission Pack 2022. Missions very much make Crusher Stampede have some pretty difficult secondaries. All the new Tau super weapons that do 12 plus damage. Yeah, I think Crusher Stampede is going to kind of take a backseat and become a B tier army. Between Tau, the new Eldar fusion like Melta guns are also going to be extremely good against the Crusher Stampede. So we'll see, but I do think Crusher Stampede is now going to take a slight backseat, and I'm probably going to do more a Alex McDougall style Forces of the Hive Mind list with Gene Stealer Cult, and tons of infantry again, just to do all the action secondaries. And yeah, I will definitely make another video with new lists and the 2022 mission pack, see what I think is good in that. And I'll try and come up with some stuff for Crusher Stampede, but unfortunately I do think its moment in the sun is already starting to decline. But thanks for watching this far. This was a very long video, but obviously I had 6 whole games to go through and lots of stuff to cover. So thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.